We're on the verge of what could be a major economic boost in this country as President Biden prepares to sign the $1.9 trillion bill he's calling the American Rescue Plan. In a CBS News poll, 75% of Americans say they support the measure, including almost half of Republicans, even though no Republicans voted for it in Congress. More than two-thirds of Americans, 67%, approve of how President Biden is handling the pandemic. The president's overall approval rating stands at 60%. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House, where the president will deliver his first primetime address tonight, 1 year after the coronavirus crisis was declared a pandemic. Ed, what's the president going to say?
Well, good morning, Anthony. In his roughly 20-minute address, the president is expected to pay tribute to the more than 500,000 lives lost and the sacrifices made by Americans over the course of the pandemic. The president's expected to talk about what he believes is the greatest operational challenge the country has ever faced, and the work his administration is doing to quickly distribute vaccine across the country. But the White House says he'll also strike an optimistic note about what could happen in the coming months if Americans come together.
We say to America, help is on the way.
This bill represents a historic victory for the American people.
President Biden and Democrats are celebrating the passage of the latest COVID relief bill. Once signed, the legislation will pump nearly $2 trillion into the economy in the coming years. $1,400 stimulus payments for tens of millions of eligible Americans. Hundreds of billions of dollars in direct aid to states and cities for vaccination programs and schools. And $300 weekly unemployment benefits will continue through early September. Congressional Republicans uniformly opposed the bill.
It's a laundry list of left-wing priorities that predate the pandemic.
I'm in an incredible amount of debt.
But people like Stephanie Freed, a theater electrician out of work for a year, are relieved to know unemployment benefits will continue for 6 more months.
These extensions for these unemployment programs were completely necessary and needed to happen right now, because once an unemployment program expires, there is a lapse of weeks or months before people get back on benefits.
The White House is going to take time explaining the new law to Americans. Next week, Vice President Harris heads to Las Vegas and the president to suburban Philadelphia.
We'll be having a conversation directly with people about how they can benefit, addressing questions they have, even taking their feedback on implementation.
Think of it as lessons learned from the Obama administration put into action. After passing President Obama's 2009 stimulus plan and the Affordable Care Act of 2010, Democrats now agree they didn't spend enough time selling the accomplishments to the public, and the party lost the midterm elections. A misstep Mr. Biden seemed to place on his old boss last week.
I kept saying, tell people what we did. So we don't have time. I'm not going to take a victory lap. And we paid a price for it, ironically.
Fair to say that now that Mr. Biden is the boss, he's going to make sure Americans don't forget that it's he and Democrats who passed what, for now, is a very popular bill. As for those stimulus payments, they're expected to head out in the coming weeks, providing much-needed relief to tens of millions of eligible Americans. Tony, in a sign of how quickly the White House wants to get this money out the door, they said they will not be putting the president's name on the checks. You may remember the last guy slowed down the process a little bit to make sure his name was on them.
Yeah, they want to move this money. Ed, thank you very much.